Known as a shooter?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was a hitter for real, for real.
Okay.
The music world is numb today, stunned by the violent death of gangster rapper Notorious B.I.G.
They've got a number of individuals that they're speaking to right now, and we're hopeful that we can resolve this matter relatively soon.
Notorious B.I.G.'s mystery was never erased by time. It was deliberately sealed, and in 2026, that seal finally broke. What emerged wasn't a chaotic revelation, but something colder, calculated, and deeply unsettling. As long-hidden details aligned, the story reshaped itself with disturbing clarity. There were no gasps, no public outrage, no frantic reactions. Just silence. The kind that settles when people realize this wasn't a tragedy left unsolved. It was one carefully controlled from the very beginning.
Smalls was rushed in his bullet-riddled vehicle to Cedars-Sinai Medical Center, where he was pronounced dead on arrival.
Biggie's case was never a foggy mystery lost to time. It was sealed, boxed, and deliberately pushed out of sight. And in 2026, that seal finally cracked. Not with fireworks or a press conference, but with quiet paperwork surfacing where it was never meant to be found. Files that should have stayed buried, audio that shouldn't exist, evidence that doesn't shout but tightens your chest when you hear it. What surfaced didn't feel like justice. It felt late, calculated, and impossibly overdue.
Mac is one of the most notorious cops in LA history. Back in '93, he was given an award for heroism after he shot a drug dealer that allegedly threatened his partner, but later it turned out that they had lied about the whole situation and planted a gun on the dealer.
Biggie died believing help was coming. Bleeding in the backseat of an SUV on March 9, 1997, shot 6 times after leaving a crowded industry party in Los Angeles. Sirens were close, police were nearby, and still, nothing moved fast enough. That's the part that cuts deepest. Not just that he was killed, but that the system around him went silent when seconds mattered. This was never a mystery searching for answers. It was a truth waiting for permission to surface.
The rapper, also known as Biggie Smalls, was attending a Vibe magazine party for the Soul Train Awards. Now, shortly after midnight Saturday, Notorious B.I.G. left the party and got into his car when another car rolled by and shots rang out.
That night in 1997 never really ended. It just kept bleeding forward into the future. Fans were told to accept one word, unsolved, as if it were a natural ending, as if some stories simply stop. But crime scenes don't expire. They freeze in time, and for nearly 3 decades, Biggie's final moments have been sitting there, unresolved, waiting, not for answers, but for the courage to finally confront them.
Including his late friend Christopher Wallace, a.k.a. Notorious B.I.G.
Police investigate the deadly Wilshire Boulevard ambush of Notorious B.I.G.
For years, people asked the same questions and got the same shrug in return. Random drive-by, gang-related, no solid leads, case cold. But none of that ever matched the precision of what happened. This wasn't chaos, it was clean. A red light. A car pulls up, shots fired. Then the shooter disappears into the city. No chase, no immediate arrest, just confusion. And not the messy kind. The kind that feels almost scripted.
Leaving a mark on family, friends, and the man behind the music.
I know you still.
As seen in the iconic 1997 tribute, I'll Be Missing You.
Every move I make.
Look at the coincidences. The timing was perfect. The location was crowded, yet somehow empty at the exact second it mattered. Police were nearby, yet delayed. Witness statements didn't line up, then slowly faded from the record. Some recanted, some went silent, some were never questioned again. This case didn't simply stall from lack of answers. It was guided, carefully, deliberately, into a dead end, and then left there to harden into history.
A dude named Psycho Mike is the one who told Poole about Muhammad. Psycho Mike's story was believed by a lot of people for a long time, but when his police interview leaked, it made the theory a lot shakier. Psycho Mike is a schizophrenic murderer who couldn't even identify Muhammad.
The official story turned into a bedtime story. Simple, soothing, designed to quiet questions, not answer them. A version easy to repeat, easier to forget. But here's the part that never gets said loud enough. Biggie knew he wasn't safe. He felt it. And that awareness hung in the air long before the night caught up to him.
I used to see Biggie all the time. Always pass through. He always drive through. Always. Like in the summer, always pass through. Always.
In the weeks before his death, people close to him noticed the change. He moved differently, more cautious. Meetings felt off. Conversations shifted in tone. Warnings came in. Not dramatic, not loud, but serious. The kind you don't dismiss unless you're desperate to believe everything is fine. Fame didn't protect him. It isolated him. Too many faces, too many motives, and real trust became rare. This wasn't ego or paranoia. This was awareness setting in.
After Biggie died, all kinds of rumors started flying about who was behind the hit, but nobody had any real answers. Biggie's security team tried to chase the shooter down after it happened, but they couldn't keep up through all the traffic and lost the shooter.
By 1997, Biggie was no longer just an artist. He was a voice, a business, a symbol, and symbols attract powerful enemies. To those paying close attention, his death didn't feel random or sudden. It felt inevitable, like a countdown quietly running in the background, unseen by the public, unstoppable once it began. Not chaos, not a chance, just a moment waiting for its time to arrive.
Last year, Kading told Fox 11 Los Angeles that the case is finally solved, but it just hasn't been prosecuted yet. And according to him, the man responsible was hip-hop's own boogeyman, Suge Knight.
Then came 2026. A sealed federal archive wasn't reopened loudly, it was eased open, quietly. Inside were materials never meant to surface. Audio tapes, internal notes, logs that didn't align with the public timeline everyone had memorized for decades. The tapes were the hardest part, not because of what was said, but how it was said. Calm, measured, almost routine, the kind of tone that tells you this wasn't confusion unfolding in real time. It was something already understood.
There were always rumors that he had something to do with Biggie getting killed, and now Kading says he knows for sure. Suge was already locked up when Biggie got killed, and Kading says he used his girlfriend to get the hit taken care of.
You hear shaky voices first, urgency, fear, panic bleeding through the sound. Then the tone changes. It goes cold, calm, authoritative. People discussing movement, positioning, timing. Not grief, not a shock. Logistics, like they're moving boxes, not speaking about a human being's final minutes. And that's the moment it lands in your chest. This isn't a rumor. This isn't speculation. This isn't a theory stitched together online. This is documentation. And it changes everything.
Keith D was moving major weight in Compton in the 90s and got booked in a federal drug case the same year Biggie died. Kading brought him in and threatened him with a 25 to life sentence to get Keith to talk about the Biggie murder.
The moment listeners realized that truth was the moment the room went silent. When the final minutes are broken down, everything shifts. A car that shouldn't have been there suddenly matters. A radio call logged but never explained becomes impossible to ignore. Response time stretched just enough to erase any chance of survival. Not hours, not even minutes, but seconds. Perfectly wasted seconds. This wasn't incompetence, it wasn't chaos, it was timing, precise, controlled, executed with discipline.
Hold on. My deepest control to the Wallace family, Miss Wallace, Faith, Tatiana, and CJ. Little Biggie.
And that's what people struggle to accept. The most powerful weapon that night wasn't the gun, it was silence. Calls that were never made. Help that arrived just late enough. Reports adjusted before the blood was even dry. Silence protected careers. Silence shielded institutions. Silence didn't just bury a man, it buried the truth right on top of him, layer by layer, until questioning it felt louder than accepting it.
Little Kim, I can't forget Little Kim.
That's my girl.
I can't forget Little Kim.
I am.
All right.
Always holler out the window. You say Big A. He holler out. You say peace. You know. He was real cool. Always pass through, beat the horn. Him, the whole Junior Mafia crew. You know.
By the time the final document surfaced, it didn't need drama. One line said everything. A sentence so clean it felt surgical. Language that reduced a life to a task completed. No emotion, no hesitation, no doubt. And that's why 2026 didn't bring closure. Closure implies healing. This didn't heal anything. It landed cold, heavy, and undeniable. Not with answers that comforted, but with proof that what happened was known, measured, and allowed to happen anyway.
In 2011, the case was reopened when the FBI's file on Biggie was released and revealed Biggie was shot by Gecko 9mm armor-piercing ammunition.
Not because the mystery was finally solved, but because it exposed that the mystery never existed the way we were told. Biggie wasn't lost to randomness or chaos. He was taken within a system that understood timing, restraint, and how to look the other way when it mattered most. And once you see that, the silence makes sense.
Unfortunately, after Biggie's funeral procession moved on, the relatively peaceful gathering was marred. 6 people were arrested for disorderly conduct by New York City police, who also resorted to using pepper spray to calm the crowd.
And once you see that, you can't unsee it. The question stops being who pulled the trigger and becomes who made sure no one stopped it. That's where this story turns uncomfortable and strangely quiet. Because when people think of weapons, they picture guns, knives, chaos. They don't think about silence. But in this case, silence cleared the path, stalled the help, and erased urgency. And in the end, that silence did more damage than the bullets ever could.
We be coming here to represent for Biggie, not to start wilding like.
The loudest clue in Biggie's murder wasn't what happened, it was what didn't. Key calls were never made. Backup that should have been automatic never arrived. And this wasn't a rookie mistake or bad luck. These were experienced people choosing not to act, choosing to wait, choosing to look the other way. In systems like this, inaction isn't passive, it's deliberate, it's a decision. And sometimes it's the most powerful move of all.
Behind the hit, but on the night it went down, he did pull a move that a lot of people think is sketchy. Diddy was in the car ahead of Biggie and allegedly told his driver to run the red light outside the museum because he didn't want to sit out in the open. So instead of keeping their crew all together, Diddy left Biggie behind, and that's when the shooter pulled up and killed him.
And while the scene was still warm, the story began to shift. Not days later, not after review, right there. While the blood hadn't even dried, timelines were adjusted, details softened, sharp edges rounded off. It's remarkable how quickly a narrative can clean itself up when the right people are holding the pen. And then came the 2 most dangerous words in any investigation. Stand down. Not shouted, not debated. Just spoken once, calmly, and followed without question.
Retired LAPD detective says that Diddy is the one who ordered the hit on Tupac in Vegas. In 2006, the investigation into Biggie's death was reopened because the city wanted more evidence to defend themselves against a lawsuit.
No shouting, no dramatic confrontation, just a calm order. And suddenly, everything stops. Because standing down doesn't sound violent, but it kills momentum instantly. It leaves no fingerprints, fires no shots, it simply freezes the room in place. Careers remain untouched, systems stay spotless, and the truth, inconvenient, dangerous, gets quietly escorted out the back door, never to be mentioned again.
Says, while she was telling him what went down, she had tears in her eyes because she was so afraid. Snitching on Suge could be a death sentence if he found out, so the woman definitely had a good reason to be scared. Kading says that she pretended to be a legal assistant so she could talk to Suge in jail without their conversations being recorded.
Silence did its job flawlessly. It protected the people who mattered and crushed the one thing that apparently didn't, the truth. By that point, the system wasn't just nearby. It wasn't just observing. It was involved. Not like a movie villain, not overt or dramatic, but something far colder. An accomplice in a suit, following procedure, checking boxes. That's what makes it harder to face. And then came the document, quiet, unassuming, and devastating in what it confirmed.
You murder someone, there's a family. There are people out there that feel a loss that can never, ever be, taken care of. I mean, it's an emptiness that can never be, replaced. And the murderer.
Not a dramatic reveal. No leaked video, no ominous music, no shadowy whistleblower speaking in riddles. Just a memo, plain paper, official formatting, a routine stamp at the bottom, like thousands that pass through offices every day and mean nothing at all, the kind you skim, sign, and forget. Except this one didn't fade. It landed heavy, clinical. It read like a death sentence written without anger, without regret. One line, calm, final, and everything changed.
I think it's very beautiful, and I think it's tragic. I think it's beautiful to see that a lot of people from this neighborhood have this kind of love for him. I think it's beautiful that these little kids are going to come out here to see him, but I think it's tragic that they have to see him like.
It wasn't poetic, it wasn't emotional, it didn't explain itself or ask to be understood. It was efficient in the most unsettling way possible. That single sentence made one thing undeniable. Biggie wasn't in the wrong place at the wrong time. He wasn't unlucky, he wasn't collateral damage. He was selected, planned for, treated like an objective, not a person. And that's why the line shattered every excuse people had clung to for decades. No more confusion, no softer theories to dull the impact. The language left no space for comfort, no maybe, no we didn't know, no room to reinterpret what was done. Words finished what bullets had already started. They reduced a human life to a completed task. There was no mention of a mother who lost her son, no children who grew up without a father, no legacy, no grief, just an outcome achieved and filed away like routine work. That's what made it so disturbing. The coldness wasn't accidental, it was intentional.
This type of event is usually reserved for political and religious leaders. This is an historical moment here right now.
Unfortunately, after Biggie's funeral procession moved on, the relatively peaceful gathering was marred.
And here's the cruel part. That line didn't bring closure. It brought exposure. It didn't stitch the wound closed, it tore it wider, forcing everyone to stare inside. Because once you see how casually a life can be reduced to paperwork, how easily a person can be treated like a task to complete, you start questioning everything around it. Every system, every decision, every silence, every just following procedure. Nothing feels accidental anymore. Everything becomes part of the same cold machinery.
His mom had filed a $500 million wrongful death suit in LA, definitely didn't want to pay up. A detective named Greg Kading worked on the case for years. And he thinks that Suge Knight ordered the Biggie hit because Diddy's the one who put a bag on Tupac's head.
So why did it take until 2026? That question lingered the moment the document surfaced. Why now? Why not 5 years ago? Or 10? Why let generations grieve in the dark? The answer is uncomfortable, but simple. Truth doesn't emerge when it's right, it emerges when it's safe. If this had surfaced earlier, it wouldn't have embarrassed a few names. It would have ripped through institutions. Careers would have collapsed overnight. Entire systems would have been forced to answer questions they were never built to survive. Power doesn't fear lies. Power fears disruption.
Diddy knew Biggie dying would make his label a ton of money. There's not any evidence that Diddy was behind the hit, but on the night it went down, he did pull a move that a lot of people think is sketchy.
Time solved that problem, not by fixing anything, but by waiting. Waiting for people to retire, waiting for names to lose their weight, waiting for voices to fade, then disappear. Time accomplished what secrecy alone couldn't. It cleared the room quietly, it thinned the consequences. And only once the risk was gone did the truth become acceptable to release, no longer dangerous to power, only disturbing to history.
According to documents from the LAPD, Suge worked with her to help him coordinate the murder of Biggie. Suge told her to get in touch with a member of the Bloods named Poochie and pay him for the hit.
Key players aged out, retired, passed away, influence thinned, names that once carried weight slowly stopped bending rooms. And once the truth no longer threatened the structure holding everything up, silence stopped being useful. That's when 2026 became convenient. Not courageous, convenient. So when it finally surfaced, people expected outrage, protests, arrests, a dramatic reckoning. But that isn't what came. What came instead was something far quieter and far more unsettling.
I'ma miss him. He's gonna be well missed, you know? Love him like a brother.
That's not what happened. What followed was quiet. A heavy, stunned silence. No cheering, no victory laps, no sense that we finally won because there was nothing to win. No handcuffs, no trials. And that wasn't an accident either. Accountability was never the goal. Survival was. Fans didn't celebrate. They grieved all over again. Because learning the truth didn't bring peace. It confirmed the darkest suspicion. Biggie didn't fail by chance. He failed on purpose. Solving the mystery didn't heal the wound. It only proved how long the lie had been protected.
Tupac's death has never been solved either, but there's been rumors about Diddy being involved ever since it happened. One of the major theories about Tupac's death is that it was revenge for a beating he put on a Crip named Orlando Anderson a few hours before the shooting. After Biggie died, rumors were going around that the Southside Crips were the ones who took him out.
And that brings us to the hardest truth of all. Biggie wasn't just killed, he was erased. The real crime wasn't the shooting at the red light, it was everything that came after. The cover-up, the rewriting, the careful shaping of history to protect power instead of truth. That's how the eraser works, not by removing someone, but by controlling how their story is told. Biggie's legacy is no longer just about music, it's a warning. A reminder that unsolved doesn't always mean unanswered. Sometimes it means untouchable. So next time you see a cold case, ask yourself, who benefited from the silence? Stay tuned to Celeb Daily News for the full breakdown.